Okay, my name is Philip Pascal. I'm based up in the ESI. I'm a supervisor at Saunders. I have not included this information. Instead, I decided to set the tone for my presentation. As I do study of internet, I've tailored this primarily to be accessible, and so there is some rather wonderfully bizarre internet content here. So basically, to start with, I'm going to explain what is the information society, which is my main theoretical framework. A quick discussion of the internet, the challenge of internet research. So I'll bring in slightly weird internet-based stuff, and then I'm going to discuss my focus group findings. Okay. The information society was a theory that emerged in the 1970s. There's issues with this. Primarily the fact that a lot of these sort of visionary authors basically argue that technology will solve everything. They're incredibly technologically determinist. IT will solve every problem: social, environmental, economic. But even despite this, their work was well ahead of its time. We have seen a significant change to our society. So the main reason I focus on the internet is because it's significant. It's relatively new to our society, which I'm sure most of us will find surprising, when we all use it regularly. It's very normalised to us. But it's a uniquely different environment from the physical world we inhabit. Just a quick show of hands, who here uses the internet daily? Who here has a device which has internet connection at the moment? Most of you. Who buys the newspaper daily? Okay. How about weekly? One of these once a week? A couple of you. So, most research on climate change communication is focused on newspapers. Very little is actually done on internet coverage or television, despite that most of us in this room will use the internet rather than buy a newspaper. The internet, again, it's relatively new. Late 1990s, we saw the growth of internet users. There's still a digital divide. The Western countries, of course, have been fast adopters of internet, and we are seeing its expansion in the developing world as well. But the vast majority of people in the UK and US have internet access. So, what was the internet? Well, when it started out, it was an imitation paper. What we use daily now, social media, user-generated content, so the whole interactive experience of internet wasn't how it started. It was much more an imitation of paper. But this all changed with Web 2.0, which was essentially a change in website design philosophy. And in the early 2000s, we saw the rise of social networking, and with that we saw user-generated content. We will use YouTube here, I'm sure, or social networking anyway. And the internet became a much more interactive experience. This is the adoption rates of social media from the US. This is from the Human Research Center. The youth were early adopters, 18 to 29, but as you can see, the adoption rate has increased across all age ranges. And in fact, we are getting more data, which is becoming an area of interest. So there's more surveys being carried out by these research institutes. When originally, it goes, February 2005 to August 2006, and then we're seeing a couple or even 3 times a year, we're seeing these sort of surveys carried out with social media becoming much more of research interest for institutions. So what is the internet? Well, it's absorbed all forms of media. Television, radio, newspapers, books. With it, it's brought social media, memes, and user-generated content. What I mean by memes is anything that goes viral. Normally, it's a picture with a caption, much like the one at the start of this talk. It can also refer to videos. So, this is an example of a meme, a slightly bizarre one from October 2014. It's a single note joke, which is why it only lasted about 2 weeks in internet culture. But this is the pregnancy announcement meme, which is essentially from an anime someone cropped out the pregnancy test in their hands, and then they proceeded to superimpose that onto other images of politicians, cartoon characters, basically anything. There's like George W. Bush and all sorts. Most of them are just a simple Photoshop. That's a piece of artwork from DeviantArt. So you do get some cases where people put a lot more effort in. And the reason why I looked at that, of course, is because it's different from all the others. So if you're trying to get artwork clean, doing something like that, it does mean look at your work. That was from Psycho or something. Whatever. Usernames. It's a good way of getting your work seen. The other thing that the internet likes to do is you generate content. And there was so many choices for this. I could have done anything from an Ice Bucket Challenge to even Minecraft. Instead I've gone for something even more bizarre. Has anyone heard of a video game Fallout? Definitely one person. Okay, a video game from 1997. It's been, at least 5 games have been out. More recently by Bethesda, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4 is coming out in the near future. Basically, set 100 years after the nuclear war of China. Deals with sort of topics of drugs, death, mutants. It's very adult orientated. So the internet likes doing crossovers, and some of these come across as utterly mad. So you'd be glad to know that someone sat down and went, I'm going to write fan fiction. So it chose the most logical thing to connect it with, a children's TV show. Friendship to Magic was the logical merger, which led to Fallout History, an incredibly long fiction. That's only in Kids of Steel Armour. It's an incredibly long fan fiction at that. To give that context, for 625,000 words, it is that long. Lord of the Rings is about 420,000 words. Yes. So the internet can be a bit weird. The original fan fiction is by a user called KCat. But the reason I use this as an example is because it spawned more work, not just fan fictions, but these are 2 fan fictions, Pink Eyes and Project Horizon. And then it led to even more user-generated content. And absolutely everything I used as a bit of a joke, that's actually from a header from a website that prints these books. This is a fan organised printing. They're printed 2 lots of Fallout Question and done printing of Pink Eyes as well. But there are radio dramas. You can get off YouTube. There's an audiobook version if you've got 3.5 days to kill by Crazed Rambling. And there are songs, including parodies. For some reason, Christmas songs keep getting parodied. It's something about the nuclear apocalypse. It's just Christmassy, I suppose. And original music, Wasteland Wailers, actually made for video game. But there's been animations, including Source Filmmaker, mods for video games. So if you want to replay Fallout 2, which is a game from 1999, someone has you covered because they at some point sat down and redid every animation so you could actually play as a unicorn. Yes, so that exists. And again, it has actually been made into a video game by Evermade Studios, which actually looks promising. It's competently made. So, why am I talking about this? And, well, the examples I've given are both made for entertainment. Reading is easy straight, but it's also to remember, you have to remember that users create incredibly complex content. I mean, I used for example Fallout Horizon, which is 1.5 million words long, because there are no editors on the internet. And both of these examples represent how diverse and seemingly random the internet can be. I'm sure I sound slightly crazy with these examples, but this actually is a significant research question. How can we predict what goes viral or what people decide to do online? Do people look at climate change information? This is worrying. This is actually one of the main things I focused on because we can't easily get this information. Websites are privately, all the data for websites are privately stored. We don't know what people look at. We don't see how many people look at things. There's huge quantities of information. For every the minute there is 300 hours uploaded onto YouTube. And we are seeing essentially a consequence of this amount of information as people restrict what information they receive. And this leads to personalisation of the user experience. We can't just go, oh yeah, everyone needs climate change information, because chances are they probably don't. It's the same problem with most forms of communication about the internet. It's the presumption that people must look at it because you look at it. I mean, I'm guilty of that myself, and I sat out on my focus group. My focus groups are much more focused on how do you access climate change information, and most of my focus groups came back to they don't really. So, basically, I've run 2 phases of the focus groups, and then just a very quick coverage of what's come out of that. My main reason is because I'm running experiments and directly looking at the impact of climate change information and public understanding, but I'm also using the focus groups to give me contextual information of how people use the internet, because otherwise it's a major assumption in my work that people look at climate change information. So one thing that came across in all my focus groups, including because I split into phase 1 and phase 2, so I rewrote the questions for phase 2 based on findings of phase 1. There's basically everyone feels constantly connected. This instance, when the internet went down for like 4 hours, and they live on campus, because they couldn't do anything, they had a nap. And another user compared it to the Stone Age, when you move house and don't have internet for a couple of weeks. So this idea that the internet's always there and participants only noticing it when it's not there is very normalised in our behaviour. It's something we all come to expect to have access to. And it's used for a range of reasons: entertainment, access to information. I use a lot of students, so a lot of people studying. However, one thing that came up was a lack of interest or engagement in climate change. I had one person very sort of positivist sort of, it's great, I don't have to look at climate change, I find it depressing. Like, no. not quite what I wanted to hear, but so the only people we generally had who engaged with climate change information was people who were had a previous interest in climate change, so they were connected to environmental networks. Another sort of unexpected discourse came out of phase 1, which I've explored more in my phase 2 phase groups, is essentially the internet's not a place of serious discussion. But then again, that's where everyone gets information from and spends most of their time, because most of the phase groups people don't watch television, they don't read newspapers, so then they don't feel the internet somewhere for serious discussion. It's a little worrying, but again, it's something I'm exploring more. So briefly in conclusion, yeah, the internet is quite a random place, as seen by the examples, and this is something I'm exploring, and directly I'm interested in how they engage with climate change. It's basically contextual information for my wider, more specific stuff with the experimental study later on.